I was interested in science-related topics from a very young age. When I was about 12 years old, I was lucky enough to move to a new home that was closer to the country and allowed me to start exploring a field and getting out with my friends and just goofing off in the woods. And I started looking at animals and plants and just was very curious about what I saw. And I was also very lucky because I lived near the ocean. And I had the wide ocean to intrigue me also. So there's a very rich environment filled with interesting creatures and plants, and it piqued my curiosity. And the kinds of classes that I liked best in junior high school and high school dealt with the sciences. I did like art as well. In fact, my most memorable class in junior high school was 8th grade science and art, because that year they combined the two. And the first science project that I ever participated in was to go out and collect flowers and extract the colored pigments from the petals of the flowers and then use those colors as dyes to make artwork. And that was incredibly stimulating to me. Of course, there were no flowers left in our neighborhood after that. Well, I'm a research scientist here at Texas A&M, but by training, actually I'm a marine biologist and a protein chemist and a cell biologist. But these days I sort of go by the title of protein chemist because I've always been interested in proteins in particular and their structure and their function. And I've been studying structure and function of protein now for over 25 years. So I guess you'd say I'm a protein chemist. Even I sort of goofed around a little bit in college before I finally figured out what I wanted to pay most attention to. But once you find that thing, I think it comes naturally. But you have to be prepared to work hard, no matter what field you choose. Art or science, technology, engineering, mechanical, whatever it is, you have to be prepared to work hard. The research field that I'm in, reproductive biology, I think has a lot of importance in our world. But before the importance, there is a high degree of still unexplored territory in our field. And so there's lots of room for people to make discoveries. And hopefully the discoveries will have some impact on our human lives. In our laboratory, we're very interested in how sperm cells and egg cells communicate with one another. And we use animals that actually come from the ocean to address these kinds of questions. I originally was a marine biologist, and after I left the ocean, moved to the center part of the United States, I was looking for an animal that I could use in my new field of interest. Well, there were horses, and there were sheep, and there were mice, and there were rabbits, but frankly, the sea urchin, which comes from the ocean, was the best animal to help me understand the biochemistry of the kinds of questions that I was asking. And so what we did then and what we do now is we take the sperm cells from these animals and the egg cells from these animals, and we look at very specific proteins that come from each of them and ask the questions, how do these proteins interact with each other and what do they do when they get together? I think that one of the things we can count on is, one, a better understanding of reproductive biology, not only in sea urchins, but hopefully in humans and other domesticated animals like horses and sheep and bovine. But hopefully the knowledge we get will have a direct application. That's always a scientist's most fervent hope, is that what they do will lead to some application in the real world, that the information just won't sit in a book on a shelf and be ignored for 10, 20, or 100 years, but be able to be applied to something that we humans do and need every day. And in our field, we hope that our work will lead to improved fertility for people who cannot have children, or perhaps reduced fertility for people who wish to have fewer children. But overall, it'd be a general improvement in the reproductive health of the human species. I think an educator, and a scientist is an educator, needs to be able to communicate what they learn, what they know to other people. And for me, that's very satisfying, to not only work in the laboratory and discover new things by myself or with my students or with my staff, but to be able to bring that information not only to the scientific community, but to the lay community, to the people who work the streets and have ordinary jobs, non-science jobs, So that's where I gain a lot of satisfaction. It's kind of funny the way these things work, though. I think today, if one were to measure the impact of our own research, one might not see it as much in the field of reproductive biology as one might see in the field of understanding blood pressure control. Because interestingly enough, life is a web. And just because you discover something down this alley doesn't mean it won't have some application or some importance down another avenue. In fact, our discoveries in the sperm cell have led to a much better understanding of how the human body controls blood pressure. So there are lots of spin-offs. One cannot predict always where they're going to go. I'm primarily involved in research, but I do spend some time teaching. I teach in graduate level courses at Texas A&M in the Department of Biochemistry, and I'm a lecturer for the Center for Environmental and Rural Health. And I get out on the road and I visit sister campuses throughout our system and talk about not only protein chemistry but also about my reproductive biology research.
Teaching is important then.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you can discover things, you can learn things, but if you don't share it with someone else, there's no reason to do it in the first place.